And today we're talking about hyper and hypothyroid. And excuse me. So we're talking about hyper and hypothyroid. The question is, how can two extremes actually be the same thing, right? How can I talk about hyper and hypo in the same episode? Well, welcome to your thyroid. It's one of the only organs in your body where if it's overactive or underactive, believe it or not, the root cause is actually the same. Now, listen to what I'm saying here. You can have completely different symptoms. On the one hand, you can have all the symptoms of hyperthyroid, nervousness, the anxiety, the losing weight, the sweating, and be hyperactive. And on the other hand, you could be tired, sluggish, not losing weight, right? All the hypo symptoms. And they seem like two totally different things. One's like going like the Energizer Bunny, the other one is super sluggish. But they're actually just different sides of the same coin. And if you really want to understand your thyroid issue, no matter where you are on this, hyper or hypo, you really need to understand this piece that we're talking about the same thing. So before we jump in and I am telling you, explain to you what this is all about, I need to let you know how to reach me and my team. If you're watching us live, drop the word live. Let us know that you're here because why not? And if you're watching us on replay, drop the word replay. Let us know that you're watching us later on. It lets my team know to reach out to you in case you have questions. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're listening on the podcast, I'm wearing a white sweatshirt. I'm pretty sure I wore this one before, and my hair looks great. So you're not missing much besides that. And of course, if you aren't already following us on Instagram or TikTok, what are you waiting for? Let's go. I give a lot of information on Instagram or TikTok. It's a great place to just get educated on all kinds of topics. And wherever you are, don't forget to share this with the people that you love so that they can become the game changers in their lives. So let's jump in and understand the thyroid gland. We need to understand what it is. First of all, it's located right here. It's butterfly shaped. It's an organ. It sits at the front of our neck and it has enormous responsibilities. This little powerhouse produces hormones, and hormones are basically chemical messengers that have that affect just about every part of our bodies. The hormones that the thyroid produces is called T4 and T3. So T4 is the inactive form, and then it gets converted to T3, which is the hormone that does everything in our body. So T3 and T4, these hormones travel through the bloodstream. They carry messages to the cells, turning things on, right? It just controls your growth, your development, your body temperature, regulates your heart rate, your GI symptoms. Basically, it does everything. So the thyroid sends out messengers to do the work. But the thyroid also, I need you to know, has a supervisor that lets it know how much T4 and T3 to send out at any given time. And that supervisor is located in your brain. It's called the pituitary gland. It's a small, tiny little gland in your brain. And the way it talks to the thyroid is with its own chemical messenger called thyroid stimulating hormone. And you guys might be familiar with this when it's called TSH. You probably have this on your lab somewhere. So TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, constantly goes from your brain to your thyroid, basically stimulating it, telling it to wake up. If it needs more T4, it says, hey, wake up. And it starts to send out more TSH to wake up. And if the thyroid's producing too much T4, it's going to pull back on the TSH and say, okay, we don't want you to wake up that much. You're a little bit too awake. So let me say that again for the people in the back who are maybe not paying attention. If your thyroid is underactive, hypothyroid, it's not producing enough T4, the brain will send out more TSH to wake it up. That's why people with underactive thyroid have a high TSH. This confuses people sometimes. Why is it so high? Doesn't high mean that it's working a lot? No, it's underactive. If your thyroid is too active, what we call hyperactive, the brain does not want to wake it up anymore, so the TSH is low. Okay, so the higher your TSH number, the less your thyroid is working. It's trying to wake it up. And this trips people up all the time about this high TSH meaning less active. I just want to take a moment and explain that. So now let's take a moment and talk about this hypo situation. So we said hypothyroid, your thyroid is underactive. It's like not having enough gas to run your car. And this is really funny because this morning I actually ran out of gas in my car. It's embarrassing. I don't want to talk about it. Anyway, Hypothyroid is just like that. Run out of gas in your car. Without enough thyroid hormones, you start feeling sluggish, mentally foggy, cold. It's like your body's running on a lower energy setting than it's supposed to. Whereas hyperthyroid, on the other hand, is the opposite scenario, right? Your thyroid is overactive. It's producing more hormones than it needs. You're on overdrive. This is your body engine running too hot, too fast. In fact, initially, people feel great when they're hyperactive until they don't, but that's another story. So, hypothyroid, many of you who are listening, it's more common. And as I said, it means it's underperforming. It means you're not producing enough T3 and T4. Everything is slowing down. So the usual symptoms are fatigue, tired, constant state of weariness. You can't really function normally. It doesn't matter how much sleep you get, you're dragging. You feel unusually drained. And if you're feeling that, you should check your thyroid and make sure that that's not what's up. Another classic sign of hypothyroid is unexpected weight gain. And I don't mean 3 or 4 pounds. I mean, all of a sudden, these patients will say, nothing has changed. I am eating exactly the same way. I am moving exactly the same way. And I gained 35 pounds in 6 months. Okay, if that's you, you need to check out your thyroid. Next on the list of hypothyroid is depression. Your mental health is no exception to the slowdown, right? So if you have a low mood or constant state of feeling down and you can't figure out what is happening because nothing's changed in your life, I want you to check out your thyroid again because chemically things are slowing down as well. And that is another reason why this slowdown makes people cold when they have hypothyroid issues. It's another classic sign. So if you're constantly reaching for that extra sweater and everyone else is fine in the room, check out your thyroid. Addition to that, we have dry skin, constipation, hair loss, slow heart rate, muscle weakness, a hoarse voice, memory problems. They're all classic signs of hypothyroid. Now, these symptoms are real. They're not in your head. That sounds like actually a great title for a book. JK, I already wrote it. Anyway, these symptoms are real. They're not in your head. Check out your thyroid. Now, let's talk about what hyperthyroid looks like. Hyperthyroid is when your thyroid goes in the other direction. You're producing too much T3 and T4. So you have this excess thyroid hormone, and now your body's in hyperdrive. Your metabolism's on fire. You're burning through calories. So one of the hallmark signs is unintended weight loss. Hey, I'm eating the same, I'm moving the same, and I've just lost 20 pounds. I don't know what's going on. That unreasonably fast is a classic sign of hyperactive. Now you might say, okay, man, I wish I had that problem. But listen to me, it comes at a cost, and I have seen this too many times. Remember, moving fast is not just your metabolism. That includes your heart. So now you have a rapid or irregular heartbeat, palpitations. I actually had a patient that did not want to get his thyroid treated because he felt so good. And ultimately, his heart was a big issue and it caused him to stroke out. So hyperthyroid is no joke. So everything's too high. You're sweating, you're more heat sensitive, you're hot all the time. These are the patients walking around in shorts in the middle of winter. Now, what else does this sound like if I'm talking about sweating, heart palpitations? What does it sound like? It sounds like nervousness and anxiety because people with hyperthyroid will say their anxiety is worse. They feel jittery, they feel restless, they feel anxious. And all of this is from an excess of thyroid hormones. This overstimulation can also cause tremors. So a common sign of hyperthyroid is a noticeable trembling in the hands and fingers. And of course, sleep disturbances. People with hyperthyroid cannot sleep. They're just like ready to go. Another classic sign of hyperthyroidism is eyes bulging. This is called proptosis. And it happens because everything's so on fire and so inflamed, including the muscles behind the eye, and it starts to push the eye socket out. So I've just described two very opposite effects, right? There's one slow, sluggish, weight gain, exhausted person over here on this side. And on this side, this hyperdrive, really underweight, highly anxious, palpitating human being on this side, right? So on the right, we have Hashimoto's, sluggish. And over here, we have Graves' disease, hyperthyroid. And they look like complete opposites, but they have a connection. And this is really important because no matter which side you're on, if you don't understand this piece, you won't understand how to get out of it. Both of them are autoimmune disorders, which means that they're both of a result of an immune system that's attacking itself, right? An autoimmune disease is when your body's defense system goes into overdrive and starts attacking its own cells, in this case, your thyroid cells. So your body has identified your thyroid as an enemy. And how do we know? Because in the case of Graves and Hashimoto's, your body creates antibodies to your own thyroid. We're not supposed to have antibodies to our own thyroid. We're supposed to have antibodies to diseases and not to thyroid. So in Graves' disease, the immune system targets the thyroid gland, leads your body to produce antibodies that latch onto your thyroid cells and stimulates them to produce too much thyroid, causing hyperthyroid. And in Hashimoto's, the same autoimmune process generates a different set of antibodies that attack the thyroid differently and destroy your thyroid cells, leading it not to produce enough T3 and T4. Okay, so now if you might have heard some people, and many of you might have yourselves know that some people start with Graves' disease, hyper, and then all of a sudden transition to Hashimoto. And this seems puzzling. How did I go from overactive to underactive? But once you realize that they're both autoimmune and they both probably have the same root cause, you can start understanding how it appears to be opposites, but they're just on a spectrum of the same issue, which is autoimmune. Think of autoimmune as flipping a switch in your body. And sometimes that body produces antibodies that stimulate, setting off Graves. And sometimes the antibodies block the activity of the thyroid, setting off Hashimoto's. So the conversation isn't what caused my Graves or what caused my Hashimoto's. The conversation is what caused my autoimmunity. And when people ask, how can I heal my thyroid? The question really is, how can I calm down the autoimmune response? And that's a really different question. And it's definitely a different question than the one your primary care or endocrinologist has discussed with you, right? Because in conventional medicine, the question is, what medication can I use to treat the symptoms? And that's not wrong. It's just not the full answer, right? So with thyroid, if your body's not producing enough T4, you get a prescription for levothyroxine, which basically is T4. And that's not wrong. Don't stop taking your medicine. But it doesn't heal your thyroid. It just replaces what your thyroid is not able to do. It's not teaching your thyroid how to get better. So what we do in functional medicine is figuring out the cause, because that's not something that's ever discussed in conventional medicine. So the next question is, what is the cause? So what's the cause of my autoimmunity? I have Graves, I have Hashimoto's. What's the cause? And of course, you know by now that there's no one size fits all here. I don't know what caused your particular thyroid issue. I just know that something did. And part of working with me and my team or any other functional medicine person is figuring out what was that thing. Is it food sensitivity? Is it leaky gut? Is it exposure to toxins? The list is long. So we have to go on a hunt together. And this is true for hypo or hyper and every autoimmune issue to figure out what's going on. Now, before I tell you how to go on this hunt, and I'm going to kind of walk you through the step-by-step. If you do suffer from Hashimoto's, I recommend you check out my episode just on Hashimoto's, where I really spend some time on the gluten-thyroid connection. At the very, very least, anyone with a thyroid issue should be gluten-free, but that's just a start. So let's go back to, how do I figure out autoimmune triggers? I always start with the gut. Again, not because it's the only solution to everything, but you have to start with the biggest piece, and most of your immune system, 70% of your immune system, is in your belly. So if you are not fixing your belly and you're doing some, other crazy protocol, it's not really going to help you if your belly is a mess, because 70% of your immunity is in your belly, and this is an autoimmune issue. So 5R protocol, I did not invent it. I just use it because it's awesome. So remove, replace, reinoculate, repair, rebalance. Remove, take out the junky food, but not just junky food, right? It's taking out bacteria or any other type of infection that we have. But it also means removing waste, making sure that you're pooping. If you're one of those people who's constantly constipated, that's not going to work out. We have to get you pooping on the daily. I know it's kind of weird to talk about it, but if you're not pooping daily, that's an issue. Replaces digestive enzymes and acids, and that is a game changer when it comes to your belly. Reinoculate is probiotics, whether it's supplements or food. Repair is using supplements and food to heal that gut lining that has been a mess for so many years. And then rebalancing. Rebalancing takes time because it's not just about the gut. That's when we talk about managing stress, making sure you sleep, making sure your movement is on point. So rebalancing is the whole system. So we start here. We start with the belly. And we need to fix the body as much as we can before we continue the search. And there could be more. You might have mold issues, toxins, Lyme, but you don't start with those tests. Those tests come later. You always start with the gut first. Now, when I say fixing and when I say starting somewhere, I want you to understand that fixing you or fixing this autoimmunity may not mean that you're getting off medication. If that happens, great. Sometimes people could come off medications. But when it comes to autoimmunity and when it comes to thyroid autoimmunity, fixing means calming things down and stabilizing it so that they don't get worse and preventing the need for more medication or for more flare-ups. Be careful of anyone who says they can cure your autoimmune. We want to calm it to a place where it feels and acts cured. But rest assured, if you bring those triggers back to your life, you're going to be right back to where you started. So just so we know, so you can meet expectations, do not stop taking your meds. Do not think that if you go gluten-free, everything is going to be fine. That's not how it works. Okay. It's about finding the trigger, calming down the inflammation. And if you are able to get off meds, that's great. But if you're able to prevent worsening and needing more meds, that is a big win too. So just know where that stands. And then the question always is, what supplements can I use for my thyroid? So let's talk about that. But you know, if you're following by now, you know my stand on supplements. They are powerful tools, but they are not magic bullets. They are called supplements. They are not the main thing. They're the side dish on the meal, okay? They're designed to complement and bolster your other efforts towards health, not replace it. So with that being said, we do want to differentiate a little bit between supplements for hyper and supplements for hypo. Because with an underactive thyroid, we want to help move it along. We want to help it become more active. And for those patients, we encourage selenium and zinc, which really helps your body produce T4 and convert T4 to T3. But for both hyper and hypo, we want to talk about supplements that calm inflammation down. And that's your omega-3 anti-inflammatory, vitamin D, your alpha lipoic acid. And this can be taken by both hyper and hypo because it's about reducing inflammation and boosting the immune system. And of course, supplements for your belly because everything starts at the gut. So if you have an autoimmune problem, you better be on a good probiotic and some L-glutamine. So a quick recap, hyper and hypo, they seem like polar opposites, but now that you know they both stem from the same place. The immune system is just going bananas. So to fix the thyroid means to focus on the immune system and calm it down. And by removing these triggers and adding the good stuff to help it heal. And I know it's a lot. And if you need help figuring this out, my team and I at The New Method are here for you. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, website, you name it. And we called it The New Method because you always knew there was a better way. I hope this helps. I'll talk to you guys soon.